Okay, beloved. Once again, we are here. If we could, join our hearts together as we ask for the Lord's blessings.
Dear Lord, on this beautiful day, let us rejoice in it. I pray that you be with people who are not able to join us in this, Lord. Thank you that we could all be joined together today. Help us complete something from your word. Christ, I pray.
Amen. Well, we are still in Daniel. We're going to be in Daniel chapter 2. And last week, my wife, with very choice words, said that we kind of got in the weeds last week, and to clean that up a little bit. So we'll see if I do any better this week than I did last week. So we'll be pressing again, and we're going to be talking about the dominion of what is being spoken of in Daniel, but it's actually the meta narrative of the entire Bible, right? And when we ask even of why we're here, of like, why were you created? Was it just to have children and lives and jobs and to even come here today to worship? Was that why you were created? And the scriptures are very clear about that at the very beginning, God says, let us make God in our image. We are to be image bearers. We're to be going forth in the Father's name. We're to bear his image in this creation. And that is the full focus of why we are here. And for us, in Daniel, there is a mingling of the spiritual realm and the physical realm as we're going through. In the first part, which is in the Aramaic, is going to be focusing more on the spiritual side as it goes through the stories. And we're going to get to sort of see behind the curtain. And we're going to be doing that today. And remember that we are using a chiastic structure. And so we're going to actually be going way ahead of Danny. And that's unusual that I would get in front of him. But because of the way it is written, we're going to have to. Because remember, this is on its side, but you kind of, get that sort of V-shaped things. And the color codeds are kind of all related. That is how Daniel wrote it. And that's how we should learn to read it. Although it may take a little bit of difficulty for us, we're going to try to process through that today. Because we're just going to be looking at the Aramaic side. So, this is from chapter 2 to the end of chapter 7 before it begins into 8. And specifically, as those things all break out, we're going to be looking specifically at the 4 Gentile kingdoms in chapter 2. And we're going to be looking at them a little closer, and then we're going to be sort of tying them together, right? Because when you have the chiastic structure, the two things that are related, there's a parallel something with them. Right? It's either going to be similar language or a similar topic, or it may be even, as we have today, what they call recapitulation, which is just an expansion or more information of what the original topic was. So the original topic is going to talk about one thing, and then when he goes to the parallel, he's going to sort of expand it and give you a different perspective. And that's where we're going to be today, because the two are related. Both the statue that Nebuchadnezzar sees and the 4 beasts that are described as the kingdoms of the earth, of those sort of things. And we're going to sort of walk through them just a little bit, not in detail from the text, because my wife said, don't do that. Do something else. So I'm going to sort of like, when we first started our children, we were trying to do family worship at home, and we're like, well, we got to read the Bible. And if I just read the Bible, little kids were just like, I'm just going to die. They're not used to the these and the thous and all that good stuff. And so what I did as a parent, I just said, you know what? I'm going to read the text ahead of time, and I'm just going to give it my take, my perspective. And if I leave out some details, fine. If I don't, and that made the engagement a little better. So I'm going to try to do that today, because it's imperative that we do get the Old Testament. You literally cannot understand the New Testament without it. You will be in error or wrong, or only getting a portion of the picture without the Old Testament. We need the Old Testament. And Daniel is going to help us see these things. Because when Paul talks about adoption and these things, these are terms that have meaning to them, and we walk past them like they're nothing. When he calls us sons of God, we just go right through them, and we don't really grasp what's there on the what's really they're trying to communicate. Just as when we started with Daniel, we were talking about how when Jesus is in front of Caiaphas, the high priest, and he is claimed to be the Messiah, and Caiaphas has no problem with him claiming to be the Messiah. But as soon as he says, I'm the Son of Man, he does the court rip and says, we got serious. And we don't know why he did that, but we want to know why. And we're going to be sort of working through that together as we look at the same. So now we know from Danny's preaching that the statue, the head of gold and silver and the bronze and then the iron and the clay, from that interpretation that Daniel says, this is the kingdoms of Babylon being the head of gold, then the Medo-Persians, and then the Greeks, and then the Romans. He doesn't specifically say the Roman Empire, but that is the empire that takes over the Greeks. And so we sort of have that picture going on, and in our minds, we're going, this is obviously speaking about earthly kingdoms, but we must again put on an ancient mindset, right? We need to use our sanctified imaginations and say, how do they see these kingdoms? Because ancient people absolutely see there are spiritual beings behind the kingdoms. That's really what's driving the kingdom, right? They don't believe that they're just peoples and nations who all have a similar culture and do these sort of things. There's a supernatural thing driving it. And in fact, when we get later into Daniel, right, when he prays to God and says, hey, the 70 years are up, what's the holdup? God sends Gabriel, but Gabriel is held up by what? The prince of Persia. And I only know of 2 scholars who would say that that prince of Persia is actually a man. Everybody else is in agreement that that is a supernatural thing that is causing another supernatural thing like Gabriel to be delayed. Because you show me where a physical man can delay an angel or an archangel like Gabriel, I'll be impressed. I'll be impressed. But when we look at this one, we go, yes, this matches perfectly with the way the world has gone about the kingdoms. But then it speaks of the rock that comes, that's uncut and destroys the statue. And we said, if it was just talking about earthly kingdoms, then this image doesn't work for us, right? Because, and he says, in the days of the kings of the God of heaven will raise up an everlasting kingdom that will not be destroyed, and a kingdom that will not be left to another people. It will break into pieces and bring about the demise of all these kingdoms, but it will stand forever. So if we were talking about earthly just transition of over time, well, the gold kingdom would have been destroyed by the silver kingdom, right? And then the silver kingdom will be destroyed by the bronze kingdom, and then the bronze kingdom destroyed by the iron kingdom. Now, by the time we get to the Roman kingdom, Nebuchadnezzar's been dead for 500 years. The Babylonian people are gone. They're not a kingdom anymore. They're somebody else. So we see something else being cued in here by Daniel of it's a supernatural thing, because he says, I destroy them all. I powder them all at the same time. That should make us go, okay, Daniel is priming us for something that maybe is different. So when we think about that, we want to parallel with that, because what was given here about the statue, all the kingdoms are together. When we go to the other side of the chiasm, right? So we go to the other side in chapter 4, and we're not going to read that at too much length. Daniel begins to describe beasts, right? He describes the lion. And if you're Danny turned me on to, I channeled my inner Danny, and I have played with the AI image generators. Nano Banana has generated all of these, and it took a lot of work because you tell it to do something, and then it doesn't do something right. So you do that again, but try to do this, and you're trying to talk to it to get it to do what you want it to do, and it didn't all do it the end the way I wanted it, but close enough that we could visually get the picture, because we've got the lion on the left, which would be the Babylonian kingdom. And then we've got the bear that follows, which is the Medo-Persian. And remember, he's turned up on his side and he's got a couple bones in his mouth. And then we have the 4-headed leopard, which is representative of the Greek kingdom, right? Because Alexander has 4 generals that end up taking over the kingdom. And then those 4 generals are taken over by Rome, which would be the last beast, that has the 10 horns, right? And it has the mouth speaking blasphemous things and bold things like that. And then one horn comes out of it, and that thing is the one that's going to be destroyed. And so when we begin to think of these things in 8, maybe this is a clearer picture of it. I should have flipped sooner. You can see it a little better. And that took a while to get to that point, but hopefully that mental rendition of the 4 kingdoms being represented by 4 beasts are the same 4 that are represented in the statue. Now, when we get to here, we're going to say, okay, well, what about these 10 horns? And it's about dominion, right? He's going to say they're kings, they have rule, they have authority. And now we say, well, now we want to go and let's say, let's read a little bit here. So the beast that had the 2 horns, one comes up and it's dominant. So it's the last one. And in Daniel 7, it says, and this horn had eyes resembling human eyes and a mouth speaking arrogant things, blasphemous things. While I was watching, thrones were set up, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His attire was like white like snow, and his hair as the head of was like lamb's wool. And his throne was ablaze with fire, and its wheels were aflame. Now, I've highlighted in white sort of the wheels of flame, because remember, who's in exile with Daniel? Prophet. This is the interaction part. Ezekiel, right? And if anybody has had their kids with the little VBS thing where Ezekiel saw the wheel, right? That whole thing. And so he sees the wheeled throne with flames and fires. And these are parallels that we're going to look at, not today, but so we're getting that you are in the presence of Yahweh. You're in the presence of God. But look what was set up. Thrones. Not singular, plural. Now, they're going to hold court. Who is on these thrones? And in an ancient mindset, what comes to your mind when you hear throne? Authority, power, dominion. So there's multiple dominions as Yahweh takes his seat upon the throne, right? The Ancient of Days. We're going to see that analogy. We're not going to flesh it out today. But these thrones have their purpose. And then God's going to have court with these judges, right? And a river of fire was streaming forth and proceeding from his presence. Many thousands were ministering to him, and many tens of thousands stood ready to sword him. And then the court convened, and the books were opened. And then I kept on watching because of the arrogant word of the horn that was speaking. I was watching until the beast was killed and his body destroyed and thrown into the flaming fire. So one of the beasts, the horn, the one that raises up, is thrown into fire. That should start to trigger some of our minds from Revelation and other places, speaking of that same type of event. And that's what we want to do, is sort of tie them together. And so now when we think of these angels being there together and this earthly and the heavenly being pulled together, and we see that the beast is being dealt with, but also look, as he deals with that beast, he kills the one beast. But as for the rest of the beasts, their ruling authority had already been removed, though they were permitted to go on living for a time and a season. And I was watching in the night visions, in the clouds of the sky, one like the Son of Man approaching, and he went up to the Ancient of Days. If he's just talking about kingdoms, then we should see the Medo-Persian kingdom still around in the time of Jesus. We still should see the Greek kingdom alive in the time of Jesus, because only the first kingdom, which would have been Nebuchadnezzar, right? The head kingdom would have been destroyed. Or if you want to go in reverse and say, no, it's just the Roman kingdom that was restored, and then the other 3 should exist, right? So now we see that he's not talking about them as a people, but he's actually talking about them almost as individuals. Now that comes into play because just as you have a president who is the head or the face of your people, or a king who is the face of your people, so are these supernatural beings or these beasts, right? And I wish I'd have blown that one up. You could see it a little bit better, where you have thrones in the background, and then the one beast with the 10 horns in the fire, and then the other three sort of in submission or having their dominion taken away. And as we see now, this Son of Man approaching as he went, right? And what does that bring to our minds when we think of this? This should automatically come directly to the New Testament in the ascension of Jesus Christ, as he ascends to the Ancient of Days. When we hear about Jesus coming to the Father, he's actually coming to the Ancient of Days, not coming to the earth. We won't flesh that part out today either, but that's what's being spoken of here. And when we think of this, because when we say, well, that authority, yes, Jesus ascended, but he didn't take the throne. You know, he's sort of beside the throne or in the throne or not there. But when Stephen is being crushed by the stones, right? The martyr Stephen, when he spoke to the Sanhedrin, he looks up and he says to them, look, I see exactly what he says. The Son of Man coming in the clouds. I see him in his glory, meaning he has taken the throne. He has taken the scroll. He has taken the dominion. He is in his place. He's not going to be in his place. The inheritance has been restored. And then when we think about this inheritance being restored, he says to this one who came to the Ancient of Days, to him was giving ruling authority and honor and sovereignty. And all the people, the nations and languages and groups were serving him. And his authority is eternal. It will not pass away. And his kingdom will not be destroyed. Right? That's the same language we had in chapter 2. Here's that parallelism, right? That rock crushes the thing, and it says, in that eternal kingdom shall not pass away nor be destroyed or go to another people's. And so when we begin to think of this, we want to think of that scene with Daniel, because there's a play on words here. When we look at Daniel 7, he's referring to 4 beasts who are supernatural beings who have dominion. And if we went to Ezekiel and you go to the throne room of Ezekiel, you see other spiritual beings around the throne room, and it didn't really do well with that on the AI, but they have 4 faces, right? And they end up having a lion face and an eagle wings, and you get a recapitulation, a leopard face. Ezekiel is putting up against that there are supernatural beings that are disobedient and misusing dominion, and then there are supernatural beings that are in obedience and exercising dominion for Yahweh correctly. Okay? And the way he ties that in is in the Aramaic, the word he uses for beast is the direct equivalent of Ezekiel's living beings. And in fact, in Revelation, it's going to talk about the beast being in the throne room. And they go like, that just doesn't sound good. Let's make it living beings. And it ends up being the cherubim as it goes on. But the words are the exact same. Well, not exactly the same. They're 2 different languages, but they have the parallel. They are the same thing. And he's tying them together because he's wanting us to see that this authority, this change is needing to go forth. Because when we look at this other parallel in Revelation, if you go to chapter 13 in Revelation, remember chapter 12 is where the baby's being born and the dragon wants to kill it from the woman, but the baby is snatched up and the woman is protected and driven. And then chapter 13 hits and we're talking about the same things, right? I know when we were discussing Revelation in the past, and we were saying that, like, if John turned his paper into one of these teachers, he would absolutely be in trouble for plagiarism, because he literally copies whole sections from other prophets and puts them in as his own. And so when we think of the beast, singular, that comes out of the sea, just as in Daniel's, they come out of the sea and they have the faces and they have this, and this one, he's going to stick them all back together like the statue. He's going to give the one beast multiple attributes as he goes forward. We're just going to read a little bit and just see the double connection with Revelation. Because here he has, and then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, just like Daniel. And it had 10 horns. What was the last beast for Daniel? Had 10 horns, right? And then 7 heads. Now, this beast isn't told that the leopard has 7 heads. But if we go back and we count, how many heads of the beast do you have in Daniel 7? 7 heads, right? You got 1, 2, 3, and then 4 on the leopard. That's 7. Check with the math teachers. That's right. It's good. And so he says there are 7 heads. And on its horns were 10 diamond crowns. Again, ruling authority. They have power. They have dominion. And on its head were the blasphemous name. And now the beast that I saw was like a leopard, but its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And the dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and great authority to rule. AI didn't do such a good idea with this picture, but you get the gist of it, right? And one of the beast's heads appeared to have been killed, but the lethal wound had been healed, and the whole world followed the beast in amazement. And they worshipped the dragon because he was given ruling authority to the beast. He has authority given by God from Deuteronomy 32. And he says, and they worshipped the dragon, they had given the rule to the beast, and they worshipped the beast too, saying, who is like the beast? And who is able to make war against him? And the beast was what? Given a mouth, speaking proud words and blasphemy. And he was permitted to exercise rule. He was permitted by whom? Yahweh. To exercise rule and authority for 42 months. So the beast opened his mouth to blaspheme against God, to blaspheme both his name and his dwelling place. That is, those who dwell in heaven. So now we should go, where's this scene happening? Is this on earth or in heaven? And so again, that little horn in Daniel that came up that had given a mouth and a face like men and was speaking blasphemous things. So it is here, the same one, this beast speaks these blasphemies in heaven. Now, when we think about that little horn, he says, well, he's doing it in heaven, and he's given power. The beast was permitted to go to war against the saints and conquer them. Interesting. He was given ruling authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. We just read in Daniel 7, that power was given to Christ, right? Or the one who came to the Ancient of Days. Every nation, every language, every tongue, exact same language. And all those who live on the earth who worship the beast. Everyone whose name has not been written since the foundation of the world in the book of the life belonged to the Lamb who was killed. This again says, where's this happening? Because it's not just the people on the earth worshiping the beast. He's saying everyone since the foundation of the world is in league. Well, aren't they all dead? Aren't they all no longer interacting in this metabolized world? And so he's saying, oh no, the thing that's going on here is a supernatural thing. It's not just a in the world thing. They're interlocked. They are, but there's more going on here than we want. And this word saints, it's actually holy ones. We put that to us because we're called that. We are called those who are set apart. We are holy ones. But here is another word out of the Old Testament that should make us as believers go, wow. Wow. Because in the Old Testament, whenever the word is plural, vast majority all refer to spiritual beings who are in the divine counsel of God. They're in his family. They're called B'nai Elohim, right? The B'nai Elohim. They are the sons of God. And that's what's being transferred to us when we are adopted as the sons of God. And that's no offense to you ladies. It has to do with you're the sons of God too, because of what that means as far as inheritance, what that means as far as power, what that means as far as your connection to the Father. So when we read this, the saints were conquered by the beast, by the supernatural being. Now, we want to go, I'm going to write my name in there, and this is where the beast is in the world, and he is attacking God's people, and it's a great tribulation, and it's going to do those things. And I want us to try to say, let's look at the parallel as it comes to us in Daniel, okay? Because he says, with Daniel, speaking of the same thing, right? Beast, 7 heads, 10 horns, 1 horn does the whole thing, it gets judged. Daniel 7, he says, as for me, Daniel, my spirit was distressed, and the visions of my mind were alarming me when he saw these 4 beasts and things. I approached one of those standing nearby and asked him about the meaning of all this. So he spoke with me, and he revealed to me the interpretation of the vision. I love it when God says, I'm going to give you a visual parable. I'm going to give you a thing, but I'm also going to tell you what it means. Now, what that should do is humble every single person who wants to make commentary on what those beasts mean and what that judgment of the horn means. You think it would clarify that, because when God says, I'll tell you exactly what it is. And we go like, I don't like that one. Give me the Hollywood version. Give me the one that really, I'll tell you. Sit back, God. I'll tell you what this means. People, he's going to tell you. Right? Verse 17, he says, these large beasts, which are 4 in number, represent 4 kings who will rise from the earth. Interesting language there. The holy ones of the Most High will receive the kingdom and will take possession of the kingdom forever and ever. Now, if you look up in your present Bible, you won't have holy ones. You'll have saints. That's an editorial choice. The word is plural, and it means holy ones. Now, it could mean us or people, but the vast majority means supernatural beings are the holy ones who are inheriting the kingdom and taking forever. Don't shut me out yet. Let us keep going, because he's going to keep using that word, and we're going to see that it is supernatural beings who are taking this possession, not us particularly in this sentence. We are going to get dominion. We are going to get those things, because we're going to be grafted into the family of God. We're going to be the B'nai Elohim too. We're going to be the sons of God. When Jesus is on the earth and he has his disciples and he sends out them 2 by 2, and he sends them out in Luke, how many does he send out? 70. And if you have some translation, it says 72, but that has to do with the nations in chapter 10. Why 70? Why not 50? Why not 150? Why not 80? Why not 75? He's doing that because he's saying, I'm sending out my people to go back into the 70 nations and take dominion. Because those 70 nations have been led by other sons of God who have not done what they're supposed to do. You now are going to go and take their place. Because what do? They come back and go like, whoa, demons are cast out. People are healed. You wouldn't believe it. And what's God say? And he says, don't rejoice at that. Rejoice that your names are in the book of life, that you're now in the family. It's not the power. It's not the event. It's you are now seated on a throne, right? He's going to tell you, Paul, when he argues that you guys are arguing with each other and taking each other to the court. And what does he say to you? Do you not know that you judge angels? if you don't understand your Old Testament and what Daniel's talking about, that makes no sense to you. And you go like, well, maybe when we're dead and we're in some heavenly realm, we get to sit on a throne then. And he's saying, no, 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 no. Presently, you are doing this, right? He says you are what? Presently seated in heavenly places. Now, it's not on a lawn chair. It's not Indian style around in a circle. You're on a throne when he says you're seated with Christ, because where's Christ seated? He's not in some Hare Krishna circle or a lawn chair. He's on the throne, and you are seated with him on the throne, taking dominion. And he says these holy ones receive the kingdom. Okay, that's interesting. Then Daniel says, then I wanted to know the meaning of the fourth beast, which was different from all the others. It was very dreadful, and the 2 rows of teeth, iron teeth, and the bronze claws, and it devoured and crushed and trampled anything that was left with its feet. I also wanted to know the meaning of the 10 horns, and on its head, and that the other horn which came up before that, which snatched out the others, fell. This was the horn that had eyes and a mouth, speaking arrogant things, whose appearance was formidable, more formidable than the others. And Daniel says, while I was watching, that horn became to wage war against the holy ones. Is Revelation coming back to you? Revelation 13. The beast waging war against the holy ones and was defeating them, conquering them, beating them down. Oh. Same language, right? This is why I'm saying Daniel's going to have to come to the office because he plagiarized. John. In verse 22, and he was going to wage war. He was going to defeat them. He was going to have power over them until the Ancient of Days arrived and judgment was rendered in favor of the holy ones of the Most High. And then the time came for the holy ones to take possession of the kingdom. So he takes it first. Then there's a time of which there is great oppression, right? But now is this holy ones us? Or is it those in the tribulation, or wherever you want to say? Is that the holy ones who are delivered and beaten down, us or supernatural beings? Because we want to say he's fighting. And this is what he told me. The fourth beast means that there will be a fourth kingdom on the earth and will deliver from all the other kingdoms. It will devour all the earth and it will trample it and crush it. The 10 horns mean there'll be 10 kings who will arise from that kingdom. Another king will arise after them, and he'll be different from the early ones. He will humiliate 3 kings. He will speak words against the Most High, and he will harass the holy ones, the Most High, continually. His intention will be to change the times established by law. They will be delivered into his hand for a time, times, and a half times. So the holy ones are going to be, again, trodden down. But the court will convene, and his ruling authority will be removed, destroyed, and abolished forever. Right? We saw where Daniel saw that vision, where the one beast was taken and thrown into the fire, and the other beasts were allowed to live for a little while longer. And he says, the court. Danny next week is going to serve up for you such a delicious spiritual meal, and he's going to build upon this rickety structure that I'm putting for you today into a very firm and make it into your brain. He's going to solidify it. And then he says, and then the kingdom and the authority and the greatness of all the kingdoms all over, under all of heaven, will be delivered to the people of the holy ones of the Most High. His kingdom is eternal kingdom. All authorities will serve him and obey him. What's wrong with that? if we say the holy ones are the saints, what's wrong with what Daniel just said? Because he says the kingdom and authority, all in heaven, is now going to be delivered to the people of the Most High God. He doesn't say that. To the people of the holy ones of the Most High God. That should make us go, all right, I have to come up with a different picture. Maybe those holy ones that are not people are also not whole people in the other parts where Daniel keeps saying holy ones. And we are going to use the plural thing and say, I think he is speaking of supernatural beings. And now these people now get the eternal kingdom. We get the authority. He's putting us together. He is sort of not just taking dominion. Within the divine council, within those holy ones who do have authority, we now sit beside them. Because just as the beasts represent a people's, so the Son of Man represents a people's. And they're now his peoples are going to take his dominion, his authority, and go forth in the earthly realm that is not separated from the spiritual realm, but is connected to it, right? Because the Son of Man, in the picture of Daniel, does what? Destroys the one beast, and the other beasts are what? Made to submit. What triggers in your mind? What other man was told to take dominion of the beasts? It's Adam, right? That's how the whole story begins. I'm going to make Adam in my image, in our image, right? And what's the first job he gives him? Oh, I'm going to form the beasts out of the earth. I'm going to now bring the beasts before you and give you authority over them. I'm going to give you dominion over them. You are to exercise it over them. That was the original plan. And now Jesus is saying, I'm now the Son of Man, and I'm now exercising authority of the beasts, and you, in my stead, are now going to exercise the original plan. That's why Paul's able to connect the two. You got the first Adam, now you got the second Adam. And the second Adam brings those spiritual beings that were given authority, he takes it away from them and puts it back in your parlay, back in your bucket. You're going now. Because it's not just the new Adam that's doing that, it's the slain lamb, right? That's the picture he gives you in the text, is that this one on the throne in Revelation is a slain lamb. Man, that's just a terrible God. I like Thor. You know, I like lightning bolts. I want him muscular. I want a slain lamb. Yet he says that's the way it's going to be. And you're going to go forth as the new Adams, all of you. You're going to take back the inheritance I just claimed. And it's going to happen systematically throughout the world. You sit here in Vero Beach because 2,000 years ago, that authority was given. Like, none of you are here if that doesn't happen. Not one. Not one. And he says, you're now in the family of God. And it's not just to save you and bring you to heaven and give you a little cloud to play your guitar or your harp on or fish or do whatever you think you want, knit, whatever you want to do. No. No, 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 no. Adoption is about performing the Father's will, right? I mean, when we hear about Augustus Caesar and the great things he's done, that's not his name. He's not Augustus. He's Octavius. He's not even related. He's a nephew of Julius Caesar. And yet his name is bold. His name is up because he's promoting the Father's name, the Father's agenda. To be adopted, we adopt, oh, you poor little orphan baby, you're cold and you need food and you need some cuddles. Come here, I will adopt you. That's not New Testament adoption. Nobody does that in the New Testament. No one speaks about adoption that way. Adoption in the New Testament is, here is somebody, and they're all old. Well, they're in their 20s usually, 20s and 30s. when they say, I'm going to adopt that person. When Octavius gets adopted by Julius Caesar, his mom and his dad dead to him now. He has no inheritance from them now at all. His full focus is now on Julius's name and his kingdom and building up his name. His entire inheritance now is his. His father and mother could be billionaires in the Old Covenant or the Old Testament and even in the New Testament. And he gets none of it. He has brothers and sisters and they die and they start dividing things up. He can't step up and go like, where's my cut? That was my mom. That was my dad. You were adopted. It's over for you. It's all in on the new father. That's what he's speaking about with you. When you come to faith, when you have a resurrected moment where you come to newness of life, you are grafted into a new family. And that family is the family of God. And he says, now you are the sons of God. And now I need you not to just sit around and go like, I just can't wait for this terrible place to be stopped. Get about it. And you get out there and you change it. You be mercy in the world. You be justice in the world. You be love in the world. You get to speak my name against principalities and powers and things, and it will be destroyed because I have the authority and you're going out in my name. That's the faith. That's what Daniel's trying to get us to. That's what the New Testament is trying to get us to, is you're not just sitting on your hands and going, oh, this is a polite little fun thing. And I'm not saying you got to just evangelize, stop in McDonald's and irritate that cashier as you evangelize her. I mean, true, genuine, passionate evangelism, because there are souls that are captive as you once were. And because somebody spoke frail, probably not even correct words, God used that and brought you to life. Somebody told you to look at Jesus Christ. See him die for you. And you, without any merit of your own or even a necessity of beings, are grafted into the family of God. We should be humbled and befuddled by that every day, of to say, why these frail, broken vessels have you determined to bring forth your glory in the world? Trust him. Trust him. He knew why he called you. And stop worrying about your legacy or your retirement or your lives or what's next. Look to the kingdom. The kingdom is connecting here. As he says, as you guys love one another, they will know I'm the world. These simple things, submit to one another, love one another, be merciful to one another, do these things. And we go, how about we just start a food kitchen ministry? I love it. We stand with the full authority of Jesus Christ. Let that loose our tongues and our hearts to take huge risks for the kingdom of God. Huge risks. Put him to the test. Even now, if you're going like, you know what? I don't think I'm really in the family. Put him to the test today. Tell him, I want to be in the family. There's no special prayer or some little thing got to take you down the Roman roads. You tell yourself right now in your heart, I want to be in God's family, and he'll do it. He did it for me. And if he did it for me, he'll do it for you. And don't try to tell me these things aren't happening, because I have already seen God's hand in the world, and you can't tell me he's not moving. He's moving in amazing ways. But I will stop and let's pray. To be your children, to stand and be able to ask anything for the glory of your name. You truly have been the prodigal father and have lavished riches upon us, riches untold. And those riches are Jesus Christ. It is his spirit that moves among us, and we have eyes to see and ears to hear, and truths that so move our hearts that we cannot help but be the new creation that you made. Father, let that thing be just fruit to your name. And as we pass on like the grass, let your name still be lifted high. And that when you are lifted high, all men will be drawn to you. And it's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.